Welcome to Passport Required. I'm Kim Covert, owner and lead travel designer at Silverleaf Travel.
And I'm Gary Covert. Together, we are on a mission to help experienced travelers and would-be travelers get even more informed, inspired, and get moving so that they can enjoy great travel experiences and make memories that will last.
We believe that travel offers so many opportunities to improve the quality of our lives. Travel helps us learn more about the world, ourselves, and those closest to us. It keeps us vibrant, fresh, and connected, and travel helps us celebrate life.
We invite you to join the Silverleaf Travel Facebook page so that we can amplify our impact and help people get off of and stay off of what we'd like to call Someday Island.
We know you're going to love this episode, so let's get after it.
Hey, everybody. We're here for another episode of Passport Required. What we want to talk about are the logistics of navigating ocean cruising. And this episode is primarily for those who have not been on a cruise before, or maybe have only gone on one or two, and maybe could pick up a couple points to help them make this experience a little bit better.
Yeah.
So, Kim, you're going to give us some tips on what are some of the things that we could do to make sure that we're doing this in the best way possible.
First, reach out to your travel agent.
Yes, of course. They've done that, or will do that. Yes.
I highly recommend having a passport, hence the title of our podcast, Passport Required.
Yep.
You will definitely need it if you fly outside the United States to your embarkation port. You don't technically need it for a closed loop cruise, which starts and ends in the United States, like Alaska or the Caribbean. But we highly, highly recommend it because you will be stopping at an international port. They all have to. It's a 300-year-old maritime law that's useless these days, but stupid requirement. So God forbid something happens when you're in said international port and you have to fly home. If you don't have your passport with you, it will become very hard.
And that's a question that comes up an awful lot because I think people don't want to go through the hoops. They think it's difficult or they don't want the expense. So they're almost asking you for permission. It's like, well, can't I just bring my birth certificate or can I just get one of those cards or something? So what do you say to that?
It doesn't cost a lot and it's not that hard to apply for a passport booklet, which you will need. It's just, they make it fairly easy these days, but timing is of the essence. Passports are taking a long time to get processed. So I say do it because you just don't know what future travel might look like. And if you have a passport, it makes it so much easier just to go.
So one more time, could you what are the main benefits? If those are some extra hoops and a little extra cost that people should go through. So what are the main benefits?
Well, the main benefits are if you are in one of these international ports and you have an emergency, you have to fly home. You don't have the time to get back on the ship and wait until the cruise ends back in the US. Then you would need a passport to fly home. And if you don't have a passport, then you're stuck there until you can get a passport, which could take days and days and days. Another thing, and we noticed this on one of our cruises last year, was the disembarkation, getting off the ship, was much faster for those that had their passports than the ones that had just their birth certificate and government issued ID.
That was huge. So that was a cruise we got off at Orlando Port, which is
Port Canaveral.
Port Canaveral. And that was night and day. They said people with no passports go to the left, people with passports go to the right. And there was nobody on the right end. We walked past this, and this was a big ship. Hundreds, maybe 1,000 people. It was sad because so many of them, were, families loaded down with all the stuff that families need to do to travel. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel bad going by all these people. But that was a huge difference. So
it's an eye-opener.
So for that reason, and then also for the assumption that if everything goes right and perfectly, you don't need it. But in the event that something goes a little off plan, for example, there's a hurricane in town and you have to move or some little kerfluffle with the ship, it's good to have. So it's just...
Or an emergency back home. Your family member, like your father had, your father and stepmother landed in Africa and they had to turn around and go back home because her mother passed away.
So if you got that call in the middle of your cruise, you would want, you're in Aruba.
I mean, there she needed a passport anyway, but just in case we're on some cruise from Miami and you're in Haiti.
Yeah.
And you get the call and you have to fly home from there.
Yeah. And the reason I bring up Aruba is so that you don't bring up Aruba. That's where I happen to have lost my passport.
Oh.
So before you get to it, yeah, I have lost my passport. So there's a consulate in Aruba. They were super professional, and somebody did turn in my passport and turned it in. But we learned a lot
after we left, because you found out about an hour before the ship was about to leave.
Yeah.
So you panicked, like, where is it? Where is it? You went off the ship, went and looked, called because we were on an excursion, called them. They didn't find it.
Yeah.
So we just had to leave.
Yeah.
Leave that country. And
so anyway, that might be another episode of how to keep your husband out of trouble.
What we did learn, there was a passport officer or a document officer on the ship.
Yes.
And that's one of the main things that they handle. And they took care of everything. It was great.
One officer that was responsible for everybody's documents and the whole manifest, the passenger manifest. And that's a very helpful individual.
Yes. So luckily you got off the ship.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the first thing I would say. Get your passport, or at least apply for your passport. You're going to book the cruise in that name. Most travel agents will say we need to book it in your legal name. It's listed exactly on your passport, especially if there's flights involved. It also has to match your passport. So
be very specific.
Passport
exactly.
book.
Yeah. Look exactly at your passport.
Physically look at it. Make sure it doesn't expire within 6 months of your return date. It has blank pages and it's in good shape. Those are the big things.
So what else should people think about when starting all the logistics?
Yes. Once you have your cruise booked, there's going to be some extras. So flights, depending on the cruise line, that doesn't include flights. So you'll need to add flights, travel insurance, which I'm passionate about, which we'll do a whole episode about.
Yes.
Also, depending on the cruise line, your shore excursions. So every port you stop in, if you want to go do an activity, that's going to cost you extra. The specialty dining, which is the restaurants on board that are sit down. You have a menu. Those are extra. And also, again, depends on the cruise line if it includes that or not. Internet, the stateroom gratuities, which goes to the staff that's cleaning your cabin and the back office, basically, the chefs and the servers.
Yeah.
And any shopping you do on board or spa treatments, things like that.
And that stateroom gratuities, that was an eye-opener for me because I was a neophyte as far as cruising. That's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not based on, I thought they did a good job. I'll give them X percentage. It's like, no, that's a requirement. Just like if you go to
it's like a resort fee.
Yeah, a resort fee, or if you're at a restaurant and they have
six or more people
are automatically going to put on 20%.
Yeah. And every cruise line, it's a different amount. And it also depends on the type of room category you've booked. So
yeah,
it can range from, $14 a day per person up to $25, $30 per person per day. And then if you have a butler on top of that.
Yeah. And usually you'll be happy to pay that because the service and everything that you get. But anyway, it's just something that when we were first looking at our bill, I'd look at it and it's like, do we have to pay that? You're like, that's a fee. I was like, okay, non-negotiable. So it's just good to know. I didn't know.
And there's some cruise lines, again, some include it or they have a promotion that includes it. So if that's important to you and you don't want to have to deal with it, then we look for those kind of cruise lines.
Yeah.
So you booked your cruise, you're all excited, you got your excursions booked, your dinner reservations, maybe your show reservations, all that's booked and you're ready to go. So you're going to fly to the embarkation port, the first port it's going to go out.
Fly or drive.
Highly recommend at least 1 day early if it's in the United States and at least 1 to 2 days, if not more, if international port. You want to go, you want to get used to the time change, recoup from the flight. You don't want to miss the ship.
And this is in the case of flying. So I had thrown in driving. So you can of course drive there unless it's international. Yeah. But if you fly there, and I totally agree. We've seen some people that fly in the day of
and they're running.
But man, that just makes me sweat thinking about.
I just panic for them. It's like, if you have one snafu with your flight, you will literally miss the ship. And sometimes, because of the maritime laws and it has to go to an international port first, you can't catch up with that ship to the very next port. You might have to wait several days for it to get to a port where you can get on board. And at that point, the cruise is over.
Right.
You've basically lost all your money.
Yeah.
So don't get cheaper at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Gary says that.
Yeah, I say that a lot.
Don't get cheap at the wrong time. So.
But yeah, and even cheap about your time. Just go there. So we've flown in many times before a cruise, like to Miami or Orlando or Fort Lauderdale. Just be comfortable, especially today with all the flights, the way flights are. They're just maximum capacity. If there's one little hiccup, the whole system is flies out of control. So
so you get there, get in your hotel. You can either book the hotel through the cruise line if they allow, or it's included, or on your own. Same thing with transfers from the airport to the hotel and the hotel to the ship, either through the cruise line or on your own. So you get to your hotel, enjoy it. Then the next morning, you can normally get onto a cruise ship or get to the pier to start the process around noon, 11 to noon. It just depends, because they've got to clean the cabins and get everybody off the ship.
They turned over. The cabin that you're going to be in was inhabited, occupied that morning.
So they turn these ships over really quickly. So you'll get to the port with your passport in hand, not in your checked luggage. You'll have these luggage tags that will go on your checked luggage, which is very similar to flights. It's the large luggage that you're going to hand to a bellman, basically, and tip them a few dollars, and they will take your large bags to your cabin. Then you have your carry-on and put essentials in the carry-on that you need until that afternoon, because you're probably not going to get into your cabin right away.
It might be a couple hours before you get in there. So get on there, get some lunch, get organized, but you're going to need a couple things to occupy.
If you want to get into the pool, bring your bathing suit.
Yeah.
If you need some medication for lunch, bring your medication, things like that.
Or you want a book or an iPad.
So you'll go through a check-in process, and every cruise line does it slightly different. But basically, they'll take a picture of you, give you a key card or some sort of identification. And then you get on the ship and you go and explore the ship. You go have lunch somewhere.
But I would say don't zone out, because there's a few things that you probably want to do that you couldn't do before you got on the ship. Yeah,
there's going to be some cruise lines where you can't pre-book certain things. It might be because of the promotion you have. You can't book your specialty dining till you get on board, or the exercise class, or your spa treatments, or upgrade your beverage package. So have a plan of what you need to do once you get to the pier.
And shows, I would add one more.
And shows, sometimes you have to make reservations for shows on some of the cruise lines. So kind of have a plan of attack. So once you get to the pier and you're on the ship's Wi-Fi, and it could be before you even get on the ship, but once you connect to the ship Wi-Fi, start booking. And then once you get on board, like if you have to change dinner reservations or make dinner reservations, beeline there first before you do anything else, because it's going to get crazy. You can always
guarantee there's going to be somebody that's more proactive than you, who's already on it, or maybe because they've got a higher level cabin or something, then they're going to get some preference. So there's like lines within lines. So, I'm kind of like, oh, we'll think about that later, but you're a planner.
I'm like,
you're on it. And that's saved us so many times, because you can be very quick and still you get into the restaurant or the show that you want to see, but it might not be at an opportune time.
Yeah. True.
I mean, how many times, the very popular restaurants, there's on some cruise lines, there's some restaurants that are very popular. You might
be eating at 9:30 at night if you really want to get in on
exactly. But anyway, the point being is,
and that's the special restaurants in your cruise fare. There is basic food and beverages included. There is a main dining room. There might be a couple restaurants, or
you won't starve.
You won't starve if you don't go to the specialty restaurants. It just depends on the cruise. Again, the cruise line, how much is offered. And then basic like filtered water, drip coffee, iced tea, lemonade is usually included. It's usually up in the buffet. Sodas will be extra. Special coffees will be extra. Obviously, alcoholic drinks will be extra. So just, think of that. So.
I guess the point is use your time wisely, because as soon as you get on the ship, there's a few things that, and not a lot, you don't have to be super crazy about it, but there's a few things that if you're interested in doing, they're likely going to be in the category of food or entertainment.
Or beverage,
go ahead and get those knocked out. So look at the significant other that's good at these sorts of things. And I'm looking at you right now. And you go do that.
my other tip, and this was after not last cruise, 2 cruises ago, I think I'm getting to the point where I don't want to get on the ship and then go eat. like even after I've done whatever I need to do with the shows or excursions or whatever, it's just because they limit the locations where you can go eat on embarkation day. And so you have, say you're on a big ship with 2,000-3,000 people, those same 2,000-3,000 people can only eat at those same locations. So it's a little chaos. So I might next time eat first.
Oh, like on shore?
Lunch, yeah, before I get to the port. And then I can take my time, kind of do what I need to do to change things or upgrade my packages, look at the ship, do a walk around, because you're probably not going to get in your cabin right away. It might take, an hour or 3 or 4 hours, depending on the cabin category you book.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Because it gets staggered out. Like in normal times, people wake up at different times. I'm an early bird.
And
people like to sleep in.
Yeah.
So and they're all open. But when you first get on the ship, there's only a few, like you said,
like the buffet.
The buffet and maybe a sandwich place that's open, and the rest of it's not. Okay. So everybody's funneled, and you can't even find a place to sit. And it's very stressful. Yeah. So that's a good point. We'll have to try that out.
Walk around the ship and kind of look and get my bearings. Things like that. I think I'm
if
do that
by
next
getting
time.
your bearings means getting a cocktail, then I'm with you on that one.
With a cocktail in hand.
Yeah, get 2 handfuls of bearings. Yes.
And then eventually they'll make an announcement where you can get into the cabin, then go in and unpack.
Okay. So that's getting into the port day early, and we talked about getting on the ship. What about during the sailing? What are some of your pro tips around there?
Yeah, we touched on it, the dining, of course. You'll have your main dining room, and it's usually open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe on port days, it might be slightly different, and there'll be different restaurants and eateries. So go have breakfast or order room service and eat it on your balcony.
That's actually a really good point. We've made a point to go to breakfast, but also like on an excursion day, this has become a habit for us. On excursion days and disembarkation day, we'll typically have room service delivered. It just seems a little bit more civilized.
Yeah, we don't have to rush anywhere. And it might be so early that the dining room might not be open or the buffet might not be open. So it's just easier just to order room service.
Yeah.
And enjoy the shows, enjoy the casino if that's your thing, enjoy your shore excursions, whatever those might be.
That's it. And so the ship obviously offers excursions. What's your opinion on booking through the ship versus booking on your own?
It's what's your comfort level. The excursions through the cruise line tend to be more expensive, but they're vetted and guaranteed to get back to the ship on time. But there's other suppliers out there that do the same and are less expensive and might be a little bit more unique experience. There's also companies out there that can customize things or privatize things. So it's just you and your group. I've had clients who take the shore excursions from the cruise ship and they privatize it. So
it's like, I like that, but I don't want to be with 30 people with a sign up in the air.
Exactly. Yes. And then they want to have a car to go back to when they get tired and they don't want to wait for everybody else. They do pretty much all the itineraries just for the two of them.
Yeah.
Or like you and I, we did our own excursion and I just booked it through another company and they picked us up. It was a nice van and it was just, I think there's 6 of us. And it was just very civilized.
Yeah, I think the internet has democratized a lot of that. So I guess at one point where I could imagine pre-internet, whatever the cruise lines organize, that's all you could find and you're kind of at their mercy. But now there's so many ways you can contact people, either privately, because we've got a handful of people that private tours that over the years we've had great experiences with. And we would so recommend those. And because they're just, private operators. However, we found their number, and they're just great.
Good travel agent.
Yeah, well, they got the inside track, and
it's just
and once they find out you're a travel agent, they treat you really, really well. And they're like, "Oh man, I'm going to
say anything to the end." So
I usually say something earlier than you. But yeah, so
and then there's shows on board. Depending on obviously the cruise line. There's music usually in a lounge. There's usually some activities on board.
There's usually a lot more than you think because this has happened to us a couple times on different cruise lines is you think that you're looking at the full program, but there might be a little bit more. Yeah. So, there's the printed program that you'll see in your room, which I think most of them are still doing now. And then also they also always push you, hey, download our app.
Yeah, they have apps too. But so you can do as much as you want or as little as you want.
On the bigger ships, there's a lot. On the mid ships, a little bit less, obviously. What about dress code? That comes up, and I think there's been a big shift here in the last couple of years.
Yes.
Do I need to dress up?
Sometimes.
Do I have to wear a shirt with buttons?
Sometimes, yes.
Can't I wear my flip-flops?
So across the board, in most eateries at dinner, you cannot wear your swimsuit and swim cover-up and flip-flops.
Okay.
There's usually a grill or something like that beside the pool. That's where you would go if you want to wear your flip-flops and bathing suit.
Yeah.
Then you have certain eateries where you can just wear a jeans and t-shirt or shorts and t-shirt, But then you have the specialty restaurants, which is like slacks for men, maybe a collared shirt, maybe a sundress for women or capri pants. And then you could have formal nights on board. And formal can be really anything.
They say formal, and then everybody forms an opinion in their head of what they think formal is. So we've seen people go
really all out,
and it's not just on the fancy ships. We've gone on kind of mid-market ships. I'm surprised people. It's like they're going to prom.
Yeah, they just love to get dressed.
Yeah, they're celebrating a wedding or something. You see them around the pool, and you're just like, okay, it's just kind of a normal crowd. And then this formal night pops up, and you see sequin dresses and guys in tuxedos. It's like, really? You clean up nice.
But then you have people just in regular suits, and then you have people just in a collared polo, and you see very wide.
Yeah, you will not see me in a tuxedo. No, you'll see me in that category you're trying to describe right now. A little bit more casual. So I'll put on a jacket. And I'll put on a shirt with buttons, but I'm kind of done with the tie thing.
Yes. The luxury lines, the upper premium lines, it's kind of resort casual is what they say. So you do have to dress up a little bit more for dinner. Would say generally you can leave the tux at home.
Yes.
Unless
not
you really
required.
Want to.
Some people, that's part of the experience. They love to do it. And you won't be out of place. No. You can be as fancy as you like. But And
there's usually on a 7-night cruise, usually a one formal night. On those types of cruise lines that do formal nights. I think some of the cruise lines are kind of doing away with the formal night just because it's not really
we're not in a formal world anymore.
No,
people are, you look around, what's going on in the airports, how people show up. So, wow.
And if you don't want to get dressed up, then you just don't go to the main dining room that night. Just eat somewhere else because it's only formal in the main dining room that night. If you don't want to get dressed up, go to the grill beside the pool, go to the buffet, go to one of the specialty restaurants. You'll still need to not wear your bathing suit, but you don't need to wear such a fancy gown.
Yeah. And some of them are doing, and maybe they do this in addition to the formal stuff, but some of them will have like a theme night where it's all red or all white.
Yeah, it was
all red.
They did it even on Virgin again. They did a pajama party.
Yes, that was a scene.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was something else.
It's fun. It runs the gamut on dress codes. But yes, you do tend to have to dress a little bit nicer for dinner. So.
Yeah. Okay. And then at some point, every good thing has to come to an end. Yeah. So you're going to have to get off the ship. So you want to have a great experience while you're on the ship, but there's better ways to get off the ship than others. So kind of walk through what are some of the best ways or some things to think about.
There'll be luggage tags again for your disembarkation. If you want to have them take your bags off the ship for you. If the cruise line offers it, they will ask you to put the luggage tag on that luggage and put it outside your cabin the night before you leave. Keep out a change of clothes, your toothbrush, your medication, your shoes, whatever you want. Don't pack your shoes.
Don't pack your shoes.
Yeah. Leave whatever you might need for the next day. Obviously your passport, things like that. So you will put that bag outside your room and then we'll collect it during the night. So the next morning, there will be a time that you have to be out of your room and off the ship. And it just depends on what your schedule is and what you have scheduled a flight or a transfer through the cruise line. They'll tell you what time you need to be out the cabin and off the ship. If you have to be out of the cabin before you need to be off the ship, then you can go into a lounge or somewhere where you can wait until you can disembark. Or you can carry all your luggage off yourself. We've had to do that where we had to catch a flight.
We've done that. It's not terrible. I would say that's a good option for somebody if they've got good mobility.
Good mobility and you're in a little bit of a hurry.
Because sometimes they'll restrict the elevators and you might have to take it down a flight or two, or there's like 100 other people with the same idea you have, and they're all clustered around the elevators. It can get a little uncivil. They were all your friends, at happy hour the night before and all during the week.
Yeah.
Nobody's your friend on the morning. And getting off the ship. Everybody's grumpy and throwing elbows. And so, but I think that's a good option if you've got to get someplace, and it also can take off some time off the clock for you finding your luggage after you get off, because there's a couple different steps. I think there's like 3 different steps you need to go through once you get off.
Yeah, you have to clear customs. No matter if you leave from, say, Miami and come back to Miami, you still have to clear customs because you have been to an international port. So you will have to show your documentation, your passport or your birth certificate and government issued ID. And then you pick up your luggage. So customs / passport control, and then get your luggage. Then luggage. And then you might even have like a line out there, depending on how you get to the airport. Yeah. Might be the Uber line. Exactly. Or the taxi line. Or if you're taking a cruise line transportation, there might be a line for that to board the coaches. And the rule of thumb, don't stress yourself out more by booking a flight so close to disembarkation time. Yes. So you will see on the itinerary, the ship docks at say 5 a.m. You can't get off the ship at 5 a.m. Yep. The ship has to clear customs too. So there's lots of paperwork they need to do. Manifest and everything. It might take like an hour and a half. So rule of thumb is don't book a flight 4 hours past arrival time into port for domestic and 5 hours for international, but also keep in mind how far the airport is from the port. Yes. People don't realize that Rome, the port is not right next to Rome. Yes. It's like an hour. And if you hit traffic or an accident or something, it could be longer. Southampton's the same way. There's just so many. In England. Yeah, in England. So just you got to know how far is the drive from the port to the airport. Okay. So keep that in mind too. Late afternoon flights are great. So is Rome like one of the furthest ones, or is Southampton one of the furthest ones? Probably pretty far. Southampton's about the same. Those two are probably one of the longest ones. Yeah. Athens is another one. Athens is because the port is not at Athens, is it? I'm going to mispronounce this Pyrrhus or Prius or something like that. Okay. So yeah, so it's a little Prius. Right, not the car. Right next to Toyota. Yeah. Yeah. There's some cruise ports that are really easy, like Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, it's really easy to get to the airport. Yeah, and what about Los Angeles? I'm thinking about that one. No, so that's San more Pedro. Like that could be dependent on traffic. Because that's San Pedro, LA, Port of LA. Yeah, then you have LA time. And if you're flying out of Long Beach or LA, it could be 30 minutes to get 3 miles. Exactly. Yeah. So point being is that give yourself some time. If your mobility is good, you can take some time off the clock and, line up and be the first people off the ship when they open the doors. Exactly. Pack your patient pants. Definitely pack your passport. Those things help. And several times we've experienced they've changed the technology. So they have face control. You think that you're saying, well, I didn't go through passport control. Well, you did because they took a picture of your face. Yeah. So your face was your passport, and it just you're like you skip a step. It's like, well, you walk through it. So we've seen that a couple times. It's kind of creepy but efficient. It's quick. Yes. So it just depends. And then collect your car, go get your transfers. Kind of backtracking to the morning, you'll have a folio provided in your room that's all your onboard spending that you've done, which will be your stateroom gratuities if it wasn't covered by a promotion or by the cruise line. Anything you've bought on board, any specialty dining, any drinks, everything. Just like in a hotel, they'll give you a copy of the folio. Look that over. Make sure that it all looks good before you get off the ship, because it's easier to fix it while you're on the ship than afterwards. What are some of the common things that get messed up? Usually drinks, meals, room service things, random charges like that. Yeah. Internet. It's a lot easier to talk to the person who's at the desk on the ship. Yeah. It's harder after the fact to get it removed. One other thing just occurred to me talking to people while you're on the ship. What's your thoughts about
booking your next cruise while you're on the ship, because they push on that one. Oh, thank you.
Good question.
She looks extremely surprised that I had an interesting
asked that question before.
Yeah.
That's a really good benefit to do. If you're really interested in booking another cruise with that cruise line, 100% book it while you're on board, because at a minimum, you're going to get whatever they're offering. And they'll usually offer, I don't know, shipboard credit on your current sailing plus a discount on the future one, or a combination of perks. And
shipboard credit on your current one?
Yeah.
So
sometimes they'll say, okay, I'll give you $150 or whatever on your current cruise. If you rebook, we'll give you $50 on the new cruise and $500 off or whatever random.
Oh, wow. So it's
discounts.
Not just future money. It's like
it could be
today money.
Yeah. Sometimes some of the ships say, we'll do something for you on this cruise as well as on the future cruise. But at a minimum, you're going to get whatever great deal they're offering. And then it comes back to your travel agent, and then they can add whatever promotions they have access to. So that you're not going to lose anything, which you've booked on board. They might be able to add to it.
Okay. That's great. And then usually the deposits are kind of minimal.
Usually small.
Is that right?
$50, $100 a person, something small. Yeah.
Okay.
Usually.
That's great. Okay.
So it's not a big commitment, and they're usually refundable. Ask the question before you do it. I have had that happen with a few customers where they thought it was refundable, but it's not.
Okay.
I recommend refundable deposits.
You just never know what's going to happen in 6 months or a year.
Absolutely. And if some prices drop or there's a better promotion, I can reprice it, which the cruise line looks at it as a cancellation and rebooking. So whatever you had will go away, and then we would book whatever the new promotion and pricing is. So we have to weigh, is it better than what you have now?
But it gives you more options.
But it gives you flexibility for sure.
Okay. All right. So these are some of the top tips that might be of interest to new cruisers. Any other last thoughts you want to leave us with?
Great. Those are all really good tips.
Great. Well, I would encourage everybody to cruise. You know, in other episodes, we talked about the different ways you can cruise. Primarily today, the mindset was for ocean cruising, but really there's a lot of great ways to do it. And I think if you follow some of these little things, if this is all new to you, it can seem a little complicated, follow some of these tips. I think you'll have a great experience. One last one that is probably more relevant for somebody like me and then somebody like you is, you've said this more than once, read your emails. You will get a series of emails from, and each passenger will, each individual passenger will get a series of emails from the cruise line. You need to either check in or do something. It's telling you what to do.
Yeah, there's these check-in, almost like the airlines. You're going to have to check in. You're going to provide your passport information. Yeah, there's a lot to do before you actually get on the ship, but just make sure that you're getting those emails from the cruise line.
Take action on them.
Yeah.
Because there is a check-in. You
really do have to check in before.
Yeah, if you don't check in, you'll show up and be very disappointed.
Yeah, or it just takes longer at the cruise port. Yeah. So, yeah, very good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I hope that encouraged everybody. Any final thoughts?
That was it.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening. Get your passport.
And get going.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Passport Required. Please be sure and join the Silverleaf Travel Facebook page so that we can connect with you. It is also a great place to share your own travel tips, experiences, and wisdom with the Silverleaf Travel community.
If you got something out of this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe and also give us a rating and review. We always want to get better, and we will read all of your comments and suggestions for topics so that we can make this podcast the best resource possible. My name is Gary Covert.
And I'm Kim Covert. Thanks for listening, and thank you for being a part of the Silverleaf Travel community.